another guest on fire. Michael Maloof is fantastic today. And we are going to follow that up with a great friend of the show, somebody who I have watched and admired for a very long time, Professor Richard Wolff. He is Professor of Economics Emeritus in the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a visiting professor in the graduate program of International Affairs for the New School University in New York City. He is founder of Democracy at Work, host of their nationally syndicated show, Economics Update. His latest book, well, it may not be the latest at this point, but one of his books, The System is the Sickness When Capitalism Fails to Save Us from Pandemics or Itself. And it is available with other books such as Understanding Socialism, Understanding Marxism at www.democracyatwork.info. Professor Wolff, my man, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing real well. I hope the same for you.
I'm making it. I had a bit of a fall, but I'm making it. I'm mustering through, especially getting an opportunity to talk to you, and especially at a time like this. I have to start at the Tariff War. A U.S. president decides, I am going to change the global order on my own. And the world has been taking advantage of us. We are no longer going to be the whipping post of the world. And as such, I am going to effectively wage a one-man economic war, and comes out with a ridiculous document that in no way corresponds to the tariffs of other countries, but is some amalgam of, let's say, imports versus trade deficit merged together. This goes on for a while. China says, we're not taking a backseat to you. And it ends up having this tariff war, almost like a personal war between China and the United States by itself, where now Chinese tariffs, Russia, the tariffs on China are like 125%, and China's tariffs are up to 83%. Trump, after seeing the bond market flip out and fundamentally crash, backed out on the other tariffs with bringing everything down to 10%, with the exception of China, where these two are going at it. That is an overview. Please give me your take. Please give me your take. I find this to be completely outrageous, but you may have a better explanation of what's going on.
All right. Let me start with the big picture, and then focus in more on the details. Here's the big picture. The United States empire, the one that has been basically the rule for most of the last century, when the British Empire, the one before us, faded out. 100 years ago, the global currency was the pound sterling, not the dollar. Britain was everywhere. Remember, Britain owned South Africa, it owned India, it owned, just in every continent. The British love to tell themselves the sun never sets on the British Empire, because as the sun goes down on one part of it, it's coming up on the other part of it, which was true. They had a real empire. Those were the good old days that Mr. Trump seems to want to go back to with MAGA. Go back, when it was great back then. The British Empire was in decline, and the American Empire was rising. You could see it particularly at the time of the presidency of Mr. McKinley, who Mr. Trump seems to admire, even though the rest of the world had long ago forgotten him. But that was the 1890s, the end of the British Empire. World War I finished them off, but in comes the American Empire. And like every empire, the Roman, the Greek, the Persian, the Ottoman, and whatever you want, it has an upturn, and then it peaks, and then it goes down. That's why we don't have the Roman Empire anymore, or the Greek, or the British, or the Persian. The United States had to know, unless it was really crazy as a place, which I don't think it was, they had to know that the would turn into the down. And so the question wasn't whether, it was only when. But, hope and self delusion springs eternal. And the American empire, which peaked and started going down about 15, 20 years ago, that the reaction of most Americans has been denial. What are you talking about? I mean, even look at the race for president. Trump last November. Trump on the one hand, Biden, then Kamala Harris on the other. Do any of them talk about the declining of American empire? Not a word. It's like, it's like one of those taboo subjects, religion, sex, or something else that you can't talk about because it's too hush hush. It's too something you just polite, nice people don't talk about. Well, after a while, these things that you're not allowed to talk about, they bubble up. They force themselves on you, right? If you don't talk, I don't want to get into the wrong area here with you. If you don't talk about sex, it's going to come up and bite you because it's part of life, man, and it's going to make its demands on you like it does on everybody else.
Professor Wolff, you can talk about sex if you need to. That's fine.
Thank you. I'll remember that. You made me sorry. I'll remember that. So anyway, the empire is dying, and let me give you just a few examples of the things that show that to the whole world. One, we lost the war in Vietnam, we lost the war in Iraq, we lost the war in Afghanistan, and we're in the process of losing the war in Ukraine. Those are the last 4 wars we've had, and we've lost every one of them. And in each of those wars, it was the United States, the most militarily powerful country in the world, against some of the poorest countries on this planet. And we lost. The Communist Party of Vietnam is in charge of that country. That was the enemy then. The Taliban is in charge of Afghanistan. That was the enemy then. And I could keep going. That's one thing. Second thing, we long ago stopped being able to make enough money to turn it around and give us the lifestyle we want as a people. So our government had to do what? Borrow. It had to mortgage the future. Our government now is in the greatest degree of debt it has ever been. Right? Number 2, our corporations are in the greatest level of debt they have ever been. And our households, if you add up mortgage debt, automobile debt, credit card debt, and student debt, we're loaded up with debt in a way we never have before. Okay, that's a sign that your economy is in difficulty. And yeah, the Bushes pretended it wasn't there. The Clintons pretended it wasn't there. Obama pretended it wasn't there. Biden pretended it. Mr. Trump, of whom I'm no fan, as you can imagine, but Mr. Trump does get the credit for at least realizing, oh my goodness, we are in deep doo-doo here. We are in trouble. We have so many debts that there's a serious danger that the world, which has been lending money to the United States for 40 years, isn't going to lend anymore because we're too risky a debtor. We're too high up in our debt. We're gonna reach a point where the American people are going to say, you're not going to pay off your debt. You're going to make sure that my kid can go to school, that my bus runs on time, and that's what you're going to have to use the money for, not to pay off the rich people who lent to you. That's what always happens when you do. So here's the plan, insofar as he has a plan. I am going to make the rest of the world pay us to help us get out of the hole we dug ourselves into. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to blame them. That's why you get this weird story. Everyone knows, and I start with myself, born in America, lived here all my life, worked here all my life, living and working in New York City as I speak to you, et cetera, et cetera. The United States has been the dominant country in the last 40 years. What are you talking about? You got cheated. This is, you know what this is called by psychologists? Paranoia. The whole world's out to get me, and they've been cheating me for 40. What are you talking about? There's a reason why you're so rich, because you've been able to rip off much of the rest of the world. You're the one who has 700 military bases around the world. Nobody else has that. What are you talking about? But in the crazy idea of Mr. Trump and his associates, they've come up with an idea. Blame the rest of the world for the difficulties we're in. Blame them. It's like blaming China for being a successful economic powerhouse. One of the reasons China did real well, not the only reason, but one of them, is that lots of American, British, Japanese, and other corporations moved production to China over the last 30 years. Nobody held a gun to their head. No one made them do that. The Chinese didn't make them do that. They did it. They did it because it's profitable. They made the decision to close the factory in Chicago or St. Louis or Philadelphia and move it to Shanghai or Beijing or wherever they put it there. And they did it because the wages were lower there and they could make more money. So it was a profitable deal. They brought the profits back here. That's why we've had a stock market boom basically since the 1980s. The whining, you cheated us, is childish nonsense. Nobody should be fooled. What's going on here is by tariff, they hope, I believe they're wrong, but that we'll see. They hope that the rest of the world will be forced by adjusting to these tariffs to give us a big load of money. Here's how it works. You're a Chinese company and you make elegant blue men's jackets like the one you're wearing. And let's say it costs, just for the sake of argument, $500. So you ship it to the United States, you get your $500 for it. Well, now if there's a 10% tariff, well, if you want to buy it, you're going to have to pay $500 to go to China for the jacket, plus $50, 10%, go to Uncle Sam. Okay, here's what they hope will happen. The Chinese will say, oh my God, nobody will buy the jacket for $550. We cannot go above $500. So here's what we're going to do. That we're going to tell the American wholesaler, we'll give you the jacket for $450. Americans will pay the $50 to Uncle Sam, but it'll still be only $500 out of their pocket. $450 for the jacket, $50 for Uncle Sam. And you know what this means? You're screwing the jacket company in China and you're building up revenue for Uncle Sam. And he's going to use that to dig us out of the hole he dug us into. But that only works if the rest of the world says, we will absorb it this way. We will cut our... He's hurting every country in order to save the United States. The countries around the world hate this for obvious reasons. They are hurt, and they're being hurt to help the richest country on earth. I love that one of the heaviest countries tariffed was Lesotho. By the way, they can't even pronounce it right. A country in southern part of Africa, Lesotho, one of the poorer countries on this planet, is being hit with a tariff. I don't remember the number, but 30 or 40% neighborhood. Unbelievable. You're going to whack these poor countries to help a super rich country get out of its own dilemma. This is not going to work, even if temporarily some countries do it. People in each country now, and Jamal, in a way, this may be the most important long-term effect. In every country that you pinch in this way, there's going to be bitterness and anger. If I'm the blue jacket maker in China,
you can feel something.
And the government comes down on me and says, you got to cut the price so that we can hold on to the... Why do I have to do that? Says whoever the Chinese owner of the factory there is. And the answer will be, because of Trump. every leader in the world, think about it, is now going to excuse whatever bad things they did. For every problem in every country, there's going to be one explanation: Trump. In other words, what he's doing, trying to blame the rest of the world for our problems, they're going to turn around and do exactly back to him. Only when he says it, it's BS. And when they say it, it'll have more than a grain of truth to it. That's a very bad situation for the United States. That's going to come back and haunt us. It already does. Countries around the world see the United States as doing something no other country has done. Mr. Trump just assaulted the whole world.
Yes.
Declared a trade. I'm going to whack you and you and you and you, and you can all come here and beg for me to relieve this, but you're going to have to give me something valuable so I can get out of the hole I'm in. They won't say it to his face, but in every government office, they are angry, they are laughing at him, and they're going to turn this around. They're not going to be ripped off by this in order to be blamed for the difficulties of one of the richest countries on earth. I mean, this is so weird and wild that even in America, gullible as we all are, this ain't not going to fly. I mean, it's just not going to fly.
Well, it apparently didn't. The day before, I think it was Monday, Trump said, these are never going away. These are eternal.
Right.
And then the day later, he walks them back because apparently the bond market freaked out. In fact, to back up your point, Donald Trump was giving a speech and he came out and said this.
In the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel.
Can you imagine a world leader going out and saying that other world leaders are calling him and kissing his ass? Yeah. And you're sitting in your office listening and watching that? That is outrageous.
Yes.
The bond markets, can you explain to the audience what is the bond market and why is it relevant in the context of treasuries? Because what changed that, bravado was that treasuries were being sold by countries and they were not being bought when they went out for another auction. And at that point they said, oh my God, this is catastrophic. And they freaked out. What is the bond market and why did he freak out as he watched that process take place?
The bond market is literally a market where people buy and sell debts. Here's what that means. If a company borrows money in the market, it issues a piece of paper. It's like an IOU. This is worth $1 million. And if you give us $1 million, this piece of paper means that we will pay you back, say 5 years from now, and pay you so much interest each year between now and the time we pay you back. And so the company gets the $1 million, you get the piece of paper, you're the creditor, the company is the debtor, and it's a transaction like that. The government does the same thing. When the government spends more money than it takes in taxes, and for example, the projection right now for 2025 is $2 trillion of spending by the American government ahead of the revenue expected by the American government. It is the job of the U.S. Treasury, that part of the government, to borrow the money to enable the government to spend more than it takes in taxes. The government can only spend what it gets in taxes. If it wants to spend more, it has to borrow it. So what it does is it goes into what's called the bond market, which is where anybody interested in lending to the government says, okay, I will give you X million or X billion these days, and you give me a piece of paper that's an IOU. And the United States now has $35 trillion of debt. The United States is the most indebted country on this planet. Nobody else is close. And the two biggest foreign creditors, because the government doesn't care who it borrows from. It can borrow from you, Jamarl. It can borrow from me. And there are private people wealthier than I am and wealthier than you are who keep a portion of their wealth in debt of the U.S. government because it's reputed to be, or it used to be reputed to be, the safest investment you can make. So you have no risk, and the government pays you these days, I don't know, about 3 or 4% per year while you wait to get paid back. So for rich people, they do it, but foreign governments and foreign people can also lend to the United States government. The two biggest creditors of the U.S. government are Japan and China. Talk about the U.S. and China. China is one of the biggest creditors in the world, and the United States is the biggest debtor. Hello, that tells you quite a bit there too, you know. So here's the game. The world looked at what Mr. Trump was doing and made the conclusion the United States is desperate, which is a correct conclusion. Why would you do? What kind of government attacks the whole world with a trade war? I mean, wow, you could. They throw away the BS about we been cheated. No one takes that seriously. What it means is you're in deep doo-doo if you have to do that, which is true. And so the rest of the world goes, we're not lending you more money because you're in too much trouble. It's like your local bank. If they see you cashing in your beautiful big automobile for a horse, they're not going to lend you money because they tell that you're not in a good position because nobody trades in their Cadillac for a horse,
Right.
unless they're in a lot of trouble, right? So the bond market on Monday said, we're not buying treasury. We are unloading treasuries. When you unload treasuries, it's an unmistakable sign that when the people who own those bonds are selling them, they don't trust to be a creditor of the U.S. because the U.S. is in too much trouble.
Wow.
Mr. Trump understood. His advisors, no doubt, told him, if this goes on, even if it just goes on for a few days, you're going to look like a loser. And the one way to change Mr. Trump's mind on a dime is to tell him what you're doing is going to make you and your country look like. So to prevent that, he did. But look at what he's doing. As you pointed out, Jamal, correctly. One day he says it's forever. The next day it's over. That's not the behavior of someone who's in charge. That's the behavior of someone who's hysterical with worry. And it's a herky-jerky, on again, off again. I don't mean to be the bearer of troubling news, but you run an honest program, and that's why you have me here, and that's why I'm telling you, this country is on the down. It's losing its empire. That, in turn, is undercutting its domestic economy. It is getting desperate. I'll show you another sign of desperation. Wholesale firing of thousands of federal employees overnight. That has nothing. Nobody interested in efficiency would ever do that. I'll give you an example. When a company thinks it can be more efficient than it is, it calls in efficiency experts. There are lots of companies that do that. They have occasionally, because they usually make a team, a couple of lawyers, technical people, an accountant, and an economist like me. We become part of a team. We go in, we examine the company and how it works, and then we write a report. Here are the ways we think you can become more efficient.
Right.
Nobody goes in, fire 10,000 people. That's not efficient. That's desperate, man. That's when you are no longer able to be careful. You're no longer able. You're worried about whether you can be there tomorrow. That's what's going on here. These are acts collectively put together of desperation. And if we have, as more and more people are now suggesting we may very well may, a recession this year, more lately last year, next year, I really tell you, I don't know what's going. This is too many problems converging on us at the same time. It's like in your personal life. You can take a hit on this part of your life. You can take a hit on that one. If you're taking 4 hits at the same time, it's too much. It's too
Yeah,
much.
they capitulate.
And yeah,
Stagflation, is that a potential risk in this? I think it
yes,
was, okay.
yes. See, here's all stagnation. Stagflation is putting together 2 words: stagnation, your economy isn't growing, and inflation, your prices are going up. When you have the 2 together, they combine the words, a new word, stagflation. Here's the problem: tariffs make everything that comes in from outside more expensive. All right, well, give you an example. A lot of our energy, not all of it, but a lot of it comes in from outside. Well,
Mhm.
if the cost of oil and gas or electricity comes in from outside, I'll give you a concrete example. The Midwest of the United States gets a lot of its electricity from Canada. If Mr. Trump means it, and he has kept in place the 25% tariff against Canadian exports that come here, well, that means the cost of the electricity in the Midwest is going to go up. And that means everybody who uses electricity, every factory, every office, every store, up go their prices to recover the fact that they have to pay more for electricity. So, yeah, we're going to have an inflation. Meanwhile, if no businesses can figure out where to invest because the tariffs are up in the air, and by the way, delaying it for 90 days only makes matters worse, because we're not going to know now for May, June, and July. We're talking into the summer. We're not going to know what tariffs are going where. Every business thinking about investing is going to say, wait, we have to wait to see what this crazy president does or doesn't do. So you might have a recession because businesses are not investing. At the same time that the tariffs raise the price, then you have stagnation and inflation, and that's called stagflation. Look, Mr. Trump has had a meteoric rise. A guy with no background in politics. He was a New York real estate playboy most of his life. So now he suddenly shoots into politics. But there's a nasty pattern in history. The people who shoot up fast shoot down fast too. And you may see, if he continues on the road he is on, man is going to explode, and his career is going to go as fast down as it went up, and we're all going to wonder what that was that blew by so fast.
Last question. He is boasting that he has a 20 gazillion dollars in investment that is coming back into the United States. And I'm being hyperbolic. I think he said like 5 trillion or something like that. He is trying to drag jobs back into America with this idea that Americans are going to pay higher prices. He accepts that they're going to pay higher prices. He doesn't seem to care about it. His thought is, well, buy American and you will get more American companies. With the level of volatility that he's instilling in this, the fact that he's only been in office for 3 years, is this going to work? And better question, there are some people in this audience that actually believe he is fighting for workers.
Yes.
That this could be the last question. Is this really fighting for the working class?
No, this is a concerted effort to screw the working class. Let me explain. First, I'm bringing the jobs here. Every president, both of the Bushes, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Biden, every one of the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 presidents has promised in the campaign for the presidency and once they got in to bring back manufacturing. Every president promised it. No president delivered on that promise. I can show you the percentage of the American economy that's manufacturing is a line that goes down, 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 down. Mr. Trump is promising the same thing. My guess is it won't work. Now, I'll give Mr. Trump, he's much more extreme in what he's doing to try to get that done.
Yeah.
But there's a reason all the others failed. They also tried in various ways, but it didn't work. And I'll tell you why it won't work now, right? Number one, the reason we don't have the jobs hasn't changed. Wages in other parts of the world remain much lower than they are here. Not as much, particularly not in China, but still in other countries, Vietnam, Bangladesh, I could go on, the wages are still much lower. Number two, the market outside the United States is bigger and growing faster than the market inside. And I can tell you, in every business school in this country, and I have taught at some, when you teach young people who go into business, you basically teach them, you want to be successful in business, you go to where the wages are low and the market is growing. Okay? Businesses do that. And they're not in the United States because this is not where the wages are low, and this is not where the economy is booming and growing. For the last 40 years, the economy of China has grown much faster than the US. Let me give you the numbers from the International Monetary Fund for the last year, 2024. The United States grew 2.8%. China grew 5%. Okay, conversation over. And that's typical. They 2 to 3 times faster. That's why they've caught up to us. That's why they're in the process of surpassing us. And that's because the wages are cheaper and the market is growing there. And so businesses go there. And if the American businesses don't do that, they come back here where the wages are higher and the growth is lower, you know what's going to happen to them? They're going to be outcompeted by all the French and German and Japanese and Chinese enterprises that are not coming here, who will be competing with them with the lower wages and the better market. And any honest American businessman will tell you that. So this is not going to work. It just isn't. The chances of it very, very low. They may not be zero, but they are very, very low. Now, why is it an attack on the working class? Well, first of all, it's obviously an attack when you fire hundreds of thousands of federal employees. That's an attack. That's first of all, an attack on them. They've lost their jobs. They've lost whatever level of career advancement they were able to achieve. They've lost their income. That plunges their family into problems. It plunges, it's awful. But people have to think, where are all those unemployed people going to go? They're going to go into the private sector. It's the only place to go and find a job. And how are they going to get a job there? By offering to work for less money than the people who have those private sector jobs now. This is going to hurt the whole working class. Meanwhile, they're going to have to pay more prices because of the tariffs. You're hitting them with you're hitting them with a 1-2 punch. This is terrible for the working class. And around the world, the people who see it are asking themselves everywhere one big question. How long will the American working class take it? How long will they sit there and absorb it? And I don't mind adding, it's particularly true for Black and brown Americans because they're going to be hurt more than white people, as they usually are in these situations. Look, the federal government was one of the few places that made affirmative action real. The percentage of Black and brown people working for the federal government is larger than the percentage of Black and brown people in the population. That's not true anywhere else. So if you savage the federal jobs, you're particularly hurting Black and brown people. Let me give you an example of how outrageous this is. In 1944, there was something called a bill was passed, signed by the president, called Veterans Preference Act. That bill is still the law of this country. And here's what the bill says. Given that we are fighting World War II and the country is being protected by the men and women of the armed forces, blah, 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 all that, they are to be given preference. If you hire more veterans to show that we care about our veterans.
Oh, I see.
And when you have to lay off people, lay the veterans off last. Well, if you use modern language, this was a bill to give affirmative action to veterans. Okay, you know what that means? That right now, 30% of public employees are veterans, which means the people being fired are veterans. Half of them are disabled. What kind of a government does this? In the name of efficiency, you're savaging your own veterans. I go back to the first thing I said to you, Jamal. We are watching a desperate government try to salvage a desperate situation. When empires go down, at least the past teaches us this, when empires go down, the people at the top, the richest and the most powerful, use their positions to hold on to the wealth they accumulated as long as they can. And that means the cost of the declining empire, the pain of the declining empire gets offloaded from them onto the rest of us. That's what we're watching.
Professor Wolff, you are fantastic. You are utterly fantastic. And I've told you before, I followed you for a very long time. You've been one of those people who've shaped my workable point of view, and I want to thank you for it. Professor Richard Wolff, he's professor of economics emeritus at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and a visiting professor at the graduate program for international affairs of the New School University in New York City. He's founder of Democracy at Work and host of their nationally syndicated show, Economic Update. That show is fantastic. His latest book, and I don't know if this is latest. In fact, I would just ask you, what is your latest book, by the way?
It's called Understanding Capitalism. It goes together with the earlier volumes, Understanding Socialism and Understanding Marxism. And you can get any or all of them at our website, democracyatwork.info.
Excellent. And where can people find you? I see on Twitter, I have at Professor Wolff.
Everywhere. I mean, again, the best way to find out everything, go to our website. From there, you can get YouTube, TikTok. We're on them all.
Thank you for this. Always appreciate having you, I swear. And the audience loves you to bits. So Thank you for this. You have a good one.
Have a good day, man.
Thank you. You too. All right. We have had a fantastic show